Adumo Adumarakwa, Philadelphia, Adeshikronkron. We thank God for giving us this wonderful day. Today being Sunday, 7th November 2021. And this is the summary of the sermon for the day. Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, as always led by the power of the Holy Spirit, today unveiled a message which was a mystery in the life of all Christians. As usual, he extends his greetings to all, especially Nananum, all Philadelphians, dignitaries worldwide, as well as you being the first-time viewer. Today, he said, it is a day that God has ordained for him to come out with this mystery that is going to set all Christians on their toes so they will know the true worship of God. He acknowledged the maiden meeting of UK Philadelphia today, the 7th of November 2021. He also acknowledged the fact that Esikem Philadelphia is now relocating to its new environment. And similarly, he did talk about that of Duaboso, where they are also moving to their new site. He continued to extend his warmest greetings to all who made it possible for such a feat to be achieved. Today's message, Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said he had built this foundation by teaching us about the mystery that we had heard about last and past weeks, which was about the untold hidden truth in the human race, and narrowing down to the zoo aspect of it. He said this morning he had prepared a different message for the congregation. However, he was directed by the Spirit to give us a new thing, as always he does. He said Christianity is different from the worship of God, and that in the past there were two types of worship of God. These were Jewish worship and Islamic worship. In fact, the two all identified with each other because they had some similarities with the belief that all of them were descendants of God. And again, they also were acknowledging the fact that in time to come, the Messiah was going to come to lead them to the promised land. Each of them had always been looking at it to the fact that they believed that the Messiah will come if only he was preceded by Elijah. So as we speak now, they are still looking out to meet or see the sign which confirms that Elijah has emerged, and that will make them believe that they are now waiting for the Messiah. He said because of this, the two types of worship never accepted Christianity. Why is it so? Because they believe that the Messiah cannot come from where Jesus Christ emerged. How can the Messiah be born of a woman who had not seen a man before, come from the house of a carpenter, and for that matter, from Bethlehem? In fact, they never believed it would be possible. And this is why both worship continue to encounter each other for places of worship, especially in the Middle East, because they believe that that is the point where all of them will be able to join the Messiah to be transported to the promised land. Moving on, Stephen Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, explained that Christianity has never existed on this earth. He said, if you move to the north, to south, west, and east, you can never identify Christianity. This is because it is a mystery which has been hidden from mankind to this point. Stephen Adum Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, explained that Christianity is all about transformation. He said transformation was, however, pronounced in the Bible as transfiguration. This Jesus transfigured himself to look like Elijah and also Moses. For this reason, he is trying to let us understand that Christianity is not a type of worship where you have to wait and look out for something to occur before you are able to make it or progress. Because when you talk about a Christian, if you judge or trace the lines of Jewish worship, they have a genealogy which traces them from Abraham through Isaac and through Jacob. So is Islamic worship. When you take the Christian, let's come to our own setting, a Ghanaian for that matter. Ghanaians are known to have roots. You may be an Ashanti, you may be a Ga, you may be an Ewe. There is no way that you can reside in one locality for as long as you wish, maybe 10, 20 years, and consider yourself, because you are now in Ashanti Kingdom, or in Kumasi, call yourself an Ashanti, when your tribe is Ewe. It is never possible. However, this is made possible through Christianity, and this he related to transformation, which we said is a part related to transfiguration. Stephen Adum Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, Jesus Christ, when he emerged, there were many things that he did which were all forms of transformation. Unfortunately, the people over there believed that he was a magician. So they said he was not the true Messiah, and never was pointing to the disciples that Christianity was a change of mindset built on faith. And without faith, there was no way that you could progress in Christianity. Because all that you have to do is related to your ability to change what you have into something that you desire by your own self and not by another person. He also talked about other types of transformation that has taken place in some parts of the world. He said in Dubai, for instance, part of the ocean or sea has been harnessed and transformed into a beautiful city, which before, in the sight of man, is highly impossible. In the same way, Stephen Adum Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, based on this transformation, you could even take a leaf and transform it to anything that you desire. It could be something to heal any ailment that is troubling your life. Again, governments have been able to transform animals which are in the wild to the zoo, which have become a point where people go to research and also have the opportunity of having a fair sight information on such animals, which hitherto there was no possibility of finding them in the cities. Moving on, he comes to the point that when we talk about this transformation, it has two sides, like the size of a coin. It has both positive and negative sides. All that you have to do is to make sure that you use the point or the part which will make Jesus Christ pleased about your actions. He narrated the fact that how can a barren woman become pregnant? You note from the Bible that Sarah got pregnant after she had been visited by the angel, to point to the fact that though she had barren womb, it was possible for her to deliver. Stephen Adum Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, wants to entreat all Christians to know that it is not a matter of you depending on what doctors say that becomes the order of the day. and it is rather what God can do. This morning, he started his sermon based on a message that was read from Matthew chapter 17, verse 1 to 3. And I will quickly read over that and we look at the key points. Matthew 17, verse 1. And after 6 days, Jesus taketh Peter, James, and John his brother, and bringeth them up into the high mountain apart. Verse 2. And was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was as white as the light. Verse 3. And behold, there appeared unto them Moses, Elias with him. Now, this 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, explained that when we talk about this transfiguration, which is related to transformation as we're looking at it from this context, was such that it was not transforming something else into another thing, as we will be expecting. Jesus Christ himself did transform into the image of Moses, and at the same time, he also transformed again into that of Elias, and then transformed again back to his own state. This 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, was trying to explain to us that when we talk about Christianity, it is simply based on transformation. And like earlier mentioned, after he had given the disciples that message that they should take the wine in the name of his blood and also the loaf in the name of his flesh, they were really transformed to the point that when they had that bumper harvest, after they had toiled several hours through the night without any catch, they were able to acknowledge that it was Jesus Christ. And when they came ashore, really, they saw a figure which was almost a man. They should have gone to ask, who is this person? But because they knew certainly that there was that possibility of transformation, they just didn't concentrate on that. Rather, they just believed that this is the doing of Jesus Christ. Went and then enjoyed the meal and were pleased with themselves. 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah also mentioned the fact that the Bible talks about the 10 lepers who Jesus healed. He just told them, just walk to the city and show yourself to the high priest. And by the time they got there, they had been transformed from their leprotic state to a state which was quite natural, and that they had no blemish. And this really shows that Jesus Christ is the King of Kings. Again, at a point, Jesus took 2 loaves and 5 fishes and transformed it, and it was able to feed several multitudes, and many were bagged behind. And this was also a transformation. He goes on further to explain that who is a Christian? A Christian is somebody who has been born again. How do you get born again? Did Jesus Christ conceive you and at a point in time deliver you for you to become a Christian? No. It is one based on his own faith and inner feeling that you desire and become a Christian. So you set yourself apart as a living sacrifice to become a Christian. It is not by any lineage. That is why all the other facets of worship are really against. Because, like the Jews, they can trace their line of genealogy. So are the Islamic people. But how come the Christian can just be transformed just overnight without any change of any passport or any document? Because even if you want to naturalize in another country, you're supposed to go through a lot of documentation before you are able to get access to that point. So this, Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah said, was something which was clearly a mystery, and many people were not aware of it. Now, he also wants us to understand, like he said earlier on, Christian worship is similar to that of the zoo animals and the way they are catered for. Because when we talk about the zoo animals, unlike the wild, which are left to the mercy of the weather and the environment, there are situations where they can be attacked by bushfires or floods could sweep them away. However, when it comes to that of the zoo, the government provides both their habitat or shelter and as well as their feed, which is constantly provided. It is also not like that of the poultry farmer who has a give and take relationship, because as he feeds you, certainly he's going to use you for a meal. He explained that for that of the zoo, it is a no-go area. There is no way anybody can touch those animals for any meal, and they are highly protected. And similarly, their workers are also taking good care of them, and they do not desire to have any flesh from these animals because they are well taken off by the government. Now, getting back to the main message for the day where Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, dwelt so much, we will also read same from Matthew, but this time from Matthew chapter 22 from verse 35. Okay, I'll also read all in parts. Matthew chapter 22, verse 35. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? And Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. Now let us come back to what Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, took us through by touching on the heart, the soul, and the mind. He said that the heart represents your feeling. That is your zodiac feeling, your innermost belief. And that is your faith. He said that that is how someone is able to believe that he has been born again. And this was a form of transformation. Stephen Adom Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, faith and feeling within your heart, it's something that is hidden. In fact, you cannot see any feeling, but you believe that it is there. And it is very difficult for one to think about that. And that is why he says that if you really decide to love God with all your heart, then same person will find it quite difficult to believe that there is something else aside from God. he moves on to explain that this type of love is something that one has to sacrifice. And to sacrifice, it means that you are to make sure that you give out what you have in exchange of what you are seeking for. Human beings, like me and you, we have taken love to just be a form of expression. We don't care standing in front of the pastor and the entire congregation to kiss our bride in the opening. 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, explains that it is unfortunate that after they have exhibited all this, they go back to the court to seek for the cancellation of the marriage or divorce. He also noted that for all of such, there is always a risk. How can you just kiss somebody whom you don't really know? You are not talking about using a person's spoon to even eat, but you are taking in the saliva. The risk that you attach to all this is part of the faith that you have, that there is nothing that can go wrong. It is for this purpose that Daniel could kneel and pray earnestly for long hours to defy the orders of the king. So did he say that John the Revelator could kneel and pray for several hours. That points in his life, there was no way he could walk upright, but he had to walk bent as he moves around. And this 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, was something that means that you have considered everything in your heart to God. Unfortunately, there is someone who believes he loves God all right. But as we speak now, it is not yet Christmas, but that person has been able to sacrifice 5 fowls at the shrine just because he believes in the name of witches. 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, says, if you partake in such activity and you deem yourself a Christian, then he is telling you point blank that you have lost your touch. You are not a Christian. Again, if you were a Christian, why will you be at the church where you believe that Christ is the center of the house? For you to be praying against people, especially witches, which you think have orchestrated challenges in your life, to the extent that you shoot armory or heavenly guns, pay to kill them with your mouth. And this 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah says that that really depicts the fact that you don't really believe in God. For nobody can serve 2 masters at the same time. You cannot give your heart to God and at the same time you also give your heart to witches, because it is a very big risk and none will give you what you are seeking for. It's either you go for God or you go for the witches. But at the end of the day, it is God that reigns. He also pointed out to us that in the Bible, nobody performed any rite to any river god. And also, at this time, he doesn't know why some parents in Ghana will have to go through that. People have a lot of Buddhas that they even will bow to or koto because they believe that that stone is a god. He also went on to explain that if you really love God as a pastor, you will not leave your people to be raining curses on people, because you have known that beside God there is nothing that has the power and authority. Such men of God normally invoke the spirit of the angel abracadabra, which they believe is a white and black angel. And this, at times, will perform tasks which are good in the sight of man, and other times which are very bad. And he said, certainly, you cannot be lukewarm. If you are a Christian, you either have to be cool or you have to be warm. And that is why he's saying that Ghanaians, especially people who believe they are Christians, are not really worshiping God. He narrates how Paul lived his life to the point that even when he was in distress, he knew that his God was there, and so nothing could stand against him. 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, explains that we have made the existence of witches as one of our landmarks, and so it has become a challenge for us. There is a time where you even find either a wife or husband insulting the other. What is the case? They believe that one is a witch. And most of the challenges they are encountering have been orchestrated by the other. In fact, Sarah said that his God is not a deceitful one. And significantly, anyone who prays against the existence of satanic influences is certainly not a Christian. Now let us look at the other side. 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, when he first emerged at Obuasi, he was told that this is a community that no pastor has been able to make it or survive. But he just took by the grace. Even at the point that he was eating gari, he was still full of smiles and making sure that he propagated the word of God. If he should be sad, it was not because of wealth or hunger, but he was sad because after standing on his feet for long hours preaching the message, people were still not getting the concept, and that was his worry. So 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, we should make sure that if we really want to serve God, we should give all our heart. And all our heart means that everything that we desire and our belief should be pointed to only God. Let us see what he means by talking about our soul. We are to serve God with all our heart, our soul, and mind. Talking about the soul, 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, explained that is our future. In fact, every Ghanaian believes that he has to have a future which will be very pleasant. And because of that, we perceive things which are very appealing, that at the end of the day, we'll enjoy life and enjoy it bountifully. He said, a pensioner, for instance, will think about his future and invest all his pension money. Should somebody tell him that if you buy this bus for me, this is the sales I was going to give you on daily basis, and as such, you are going to be wealthy within a short time. They take the risk forgetting that when you buy a car, it has parts that could be worn out. At the same time, it also could involve in an accident. And this, he said, was the reason why we're supposed to know that we cannot serve God when we desire for the things of the future. Because the word of God tells us that man should not think about what he will live on tomorrow, but think about what he will be living on daily basis. That is why he, 7th.Nov. Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, has always done that. And he has never had the chance to curse governments or curse congregations as people who plan to have harvests for church programs end up with huge losses. At the same time, people who have that perception that this funeral, should I invest this much of money into it, I'm going to get so much reward at the end of it. If you are lucky, you will just have a break even. Unfortunately, many of such people end having the funerals being rained off with rainstorms, having all the people who had come to commensurate with them run away with their money. And at the end, it ends out with huge losses. However, man, because of his evil intentions and thinking about his future, does not care, going to take things which have expired and rebranding them as something that will expire in the next 2 years. And this he will sell to fellow man, irrespective of the consequences that the person may encounter, even if it is to the end of his life. They also don't care, taking things which are fake and duplicate original stickers and put them over just to make sure they have money because they are thinking about their future. This 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said, if you harbor this in your heart, certainly there is no way you are going to make it, because you continue to make mistakes which will be to the detriment of your life. Now, coming to the last point, 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, also did talk about the mind, the personality, and this is what almost all of us really are engaged in. This is a practical lifestyle of almost everybody who believes he's a Christian, and even non-Christians alike. Before we go into any sort of business or transaction, we do forecasts. We bring statistical data to prove a point. As said earlier by 7th.Nov Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, that Jesus Christ warned us not to think about the future. It is prudent on your side that even if it is 5 cedis that you have, you could invest it in buying just a cup of flour and baking it into something that you can sell and make a little money. But as soon as you start thinking that, oh, with this little money, the investment I have made is giving me this much returns, and you start to go into a huge business by going to borrow with anticipation that if I have invested 5 cedis and I'm able to earn 7 cedis, then if I invest 50 cedis, I'll have 70 cedis. Trust God that at the end of the day, you end up with a loss. You will not even get the 50 cedis you invested. Typically, he said, if we want to really contest this fact, we should know that 1 + 1 is exactly 2. You just start saving, be adding, and see that the time you have anticipated to have a particular amount, whether you really be able to make it. No, that is never possible. However, if you dwell on the spirit of transformation as taught by Jesus Christ, the little, which is the 5 cedis that you had, you could invest. It will yield and yield and yield. And that money you could channel into even building up mansions. Because all that you think about is not about yourself, but your thoughts are related to what will make Jesus Christ pleased in what you are doing. If we live our lives by making sure that Jesus Christ is in it and don't think about our profit, then certainly there is no way we are going to run at a loss. He said, all that Christians need is just a transformation. He has branches at Accra that he visits. He has never thought about profit. Oh, if it is profit, then certainly he will have thought of these numerous buses that he has bought, put a price tag on the fare that if it brings you from a location to the church, you are going to pay that token. He will get enough to pay even the drivers and have a lot of money stuck at the bank. But no, that is not his mission. And for this reason, the prayer he did say on 31st night, 2020 for 2021, he has really been able to achieve that aim because he does not think about his profit. And that is why the Philadelphian city is almost on course to the point that he'll be able to use it for the service. Because of this, he is telling all Philadelphians that his message, as he has promised, is going to empower us to the point that by the time we are at 31st, we are already matured to the point that we'll be able to assimilate all the blessings that will go with the message, and that 2022 will be bountiful in our life. 7th.Nov.2021, Kyei-Duah, the voice of God, said that all you need to do is to know that transformation is what you need. And through this transformation, you could make your life better. And if you want to make your life better, then you must know that it is Jesus Christ that you must give up all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. Thank you for listening to us, and I'm quite sure next week you also make time to listen to the voice of God. Bye-bye.